Hi, welcome back to Rebel Movement Podcast. My name is Billie. My pronouns are they, them, or she, her. And I'm really glad you're here. Before we get into the episode, I'll do a little reminder that in September, I'm doing a movement teacher workshop called Anti-Diet Teaching, where I'm going to teach you all about what diet culture is, where it comes from, why it's bullshit, how it affects you and your students, and how to teach in a way that is more inclusive, particularly safer for folks who have left diet culture or who have experienced eating disorders. Um, and for taking this workshop, you get 5 continuing education hours through Yoga Alliance. All the links should be in the show notes. There's a payment plan. There's scholarships available. You can just reach out to me if you would like to ask for one of those spots or claim one of those spots. I'm not going to make you answer a million questions. Just reach out if you would like that. And if you like the stuff we talk about here, if you like the stuff that I like work that I do, you might join my virtual movement studio. It's a group class based rebel movement club, it's called. And you can do yoga and mobility and workout classes every single week. And it's honestly fantastic. Or you might work with me one on one, particularly if you want a lot more specialized one on one work, kind of like if life coaching meets leaving diet culture meets yoga, like yoga movement stuff. Pretty phenomenal combination, if I do say so myself. But you can reach out via email to set up a free consult. We can talk all about that, or you can just send me an email or a message on Instagram, whatever, with all of your worries or hesitations or questions or whatever you need. I'm here for the conversation. Today, I want to talk about my values. Um, I put a lot of thought, like I think I thought about these for years probably, into what my values are and have recently published them on my website. So I'm getting some of this from that, and I will just straight up read part of it, but I am going to talk and add on and maybe talk about why I chose what I chose. Um, but just in case you're like, what the heck are values? I'm just say right off the top, values are beliefs and principles that you believe are important and that influence the way you live, work, operate in the world. So I use them in my life and in my business and just in most situations. Um, when I say I use them in my life, I don't necessarily mean that I have the list like in my pocket all the time and I refer back to them. They're just things that are already integrated into the way that I interact with the world. Um, and things that really influence decisions I make and things that I do. And that's why it was really hard for me to put them into words. It was really, it felt really confusing and difficult for me to put them into words because they're like putting words to things that are already systems and like there's systems in place for these to be happening. Um, felt really confusing to me. And also, I want to just say that I've been to and heard of so many other businesses where they have their values or their pillars or their um, mission statements, and they're all bullshit. They're just like, not that the statements are bullshit, just, well, kind of, that they're all talk and no action. They say these things, and then they, at the same time, they're like saying one thing to your face and doing another thing behind their back. You know, like when someone's like crossing their fingers when they're making you a promise. A lot of businesses use their values like this, and I hate that so much. Um, I've been to several different movement spaces where they're saying they're inclusive, but then they say shit like, "Hey, ladies," or um, "Work off that turkey." It's like you can't. Like one of these things is not adding up. Like all of these things are not adding up. So I was really cognizant of that as I was starting this work, and I put a lot of effort into trying to not only talk about them like with my own voice so that it really feels genuine, but also with a recognition that like words only mean so much, and I want you to see that I actually live up to them. Um, and it's a big conversation. I feel like we probably could have a whole conversation sometime about that in itself, of the amount of, I can't remember, there's a word for it. It's like, I know that's like rainbow washing, but there's another word that's sort of like a broader term, and I can't remember what it is right now. Um, but just like inclusivity for the sake of like saying inclusivity without meaning anything. So it ends up becoming a buzzword, which brings me into the first one. Um, my first value is be as inclusive as possible. So you'll notice I did not say be inclusive. Um, just as I'm working currently with Tristan Katz, fantastic person, and they say no safe spaces, safer spaces. I don't know if that's their exact wording. Um, Safer spaces. Inclusivity has become a buzzword. It's become like a gold star sticker to broadcast to others. It's like something others want to hear. I really fucking hate that version of inclusivity. I really believe that the word can still hold that meaning so long as like action actually backs it up, which is what I very much strive to do. We live in a society that's built on systemic oppression, and it's impossible for anyone to be completely inclusive. That's why I say be more like be as inclusive as possible. Similar, I believe it's the same motivation behind Tristan Katz's safer spaces. Um, we can all do our best and we can keep learning to do better, but we can't be perfect because we don't live in a perfect system. When I say be as inclusive as possible, I mean we're going to throw out and unpack diet culture, anti-fat bias, and weight loss talk. It means actively unlearning our inner anti-fat bias and all implicit biases that relate to race, sexuality, gender, ability, and much more. Avoiding gendered language, asking for pronouns, and not making assumptions about gender or gender identity or sexual identity or sexual preferences, any of that. I am committed to learning how to be anti-racist, demanding land back, demanding a ceasefire, acknowledging privilege, and learning from voices who have firsthand experiences. So we're doing that together. That's what I mean when I say be as inclusive as possible. That's the stuff that I want to do. That's the people that I want to interact with. People who are also doing that work too. And when I say people who have firsthand experiences, just in case that's confusing, I mean learning how to be anti-racist from someone who is Black or Indigenous or BIPOC. We aren't free until we're all free. I think that's an important thing to acknowledge. There's a lot of intersectionality, and doing part of this work means doing more of this work. So I don't believe that I can truly be anti-diet if I'm not also learning how to be anti-racist, because at diet culture's roots exists racism, right? And if you don't know about that, we've talked about it in another episode and we can talk about it again another time. But there's a lot of intersectionality. I am not here at all for spiritual bypassing or body shaming or discriminatory language. All of that is not allowed in my space. I am queer. I'm non-binary. I identify as a woman. That's who I am leading this space. I do have an anti-harassment policy, code of ethics. I have one particular one for podcast guests, and these are very important things in my space. If there is any action that goes against any of the things I just said, I have steps in place for making my space feel safer. So if someone is being harmful, there might first be a conversation with that person one-on-one to maybe if there's a space to educate why they are being harmful or how they're being harmful. If that conversation, there's no change after the conversation, or it doesn't seem, it seems like a more extreme situation, their membership will be canceled without a refund, and they're no longer allowed back into the space. So it is something I take very seriously. And I just want to highlight the actions behind At least in that part of it of making the like I can do all these things. I can like learn how to be more inclusive. I can learn anti-racism. I can learn um about anti-queer um systems and anti-fat bias, but in relation to the space, there's also actions happening there. Um, my second one is walk the walk and continue learning how to. I don't I really don't want to be another one of those yoga spaces or movement spaces claiming to be a safe space with a rainbow sticker on the window without actually doing anything to make the space safe. Um, I've been harmed in too many spaces where they've done that, where they say, "Oh, I'm safe," but then they're not. Like I said before, I said closer to the beginning, I was just so fed up with that that's part of the reason I decided to make my own space. I did not feel comfortable even teaching, even thinking about teaching in other spaces because I had been harmed so many times. I was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to know if this space is actually safe?" Right? Like, how do I know? And if they don't fully match, I don't want to be there. And therefore, I just made my own space, hoping that I can be a person who, if people are feeling that, like, oh my God, I want a space that's actually anti-fat bias or that actually is standing against anti-fat bias, sorry, or that is actually doing the work of queer inclusivity, they can hopefully find my space and see that I'm not just looking for a rainbow sticker. When I did my steps for being rainbow registered, which is a thing in Canada. I don't think it's um, in the States or anything like that, but it's a regulated thing through the government where you actually have to show I think I can't remember how many things there are now. There's like I can't think if it's like 4 or 6 different criteria you have to meet, and you have to have a certain amount of examples of each thing that you're not just like I said, like you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. Part of that's basically what the rainbow registration does is check that you're actually doing these things, that you're actually educated on it, and you're actually doing things that make the space safe and inclusive, or more safe and more inclusive. Um, so I kind of spoke to my I don't know what you'd call them, arbitrator. I don't know if that's the word. The person who I was meeting with to provide them all the evidence and have these discussions. I'd said, "Oh, this is much easier than I was expecting it to be," and they said, "Yeah, if you're actually doing the work, it's pretty easy, but it's the people who come just looking for the rainbow sticker to put on their window. They have more work to do." And it's a more lengthy, longer process. So the person who I arbitrator will say I had gone on vacation and stuff. So my process probably took like a month and a half, but without or maybe 3 months, I can't remember. But without all of that, it probably would have been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Um, I want my actions to speak louder than my words. I don't want to be a person just saying these things and not doing anything. I want it to be more clear in my actions, which again is part of the reason it felt really tricky for me to find the words because I don't want the words to be the important parts, but I know that they are important as well. um, in order to try to let my actions speak louder than my words, I'm committed to continuing my education, looking inward at my own implicit biases, and doing my own damn work so that I can keep learning how to do better. I was Rainbow registered in 2024 in March. I have several trainings on trauma informed teaching and inclusivity, queer informed teaching, trans inclusive teaching, um, yoga for spoonies, which is yoga for folks who have disabilities. I ask for feedback on a regular basis, I think after every single class. Um, I provide a space where I'm actively listening to feedback. So, like, I'm not just gonna tell you you're wrong. Have you ever had that experience? You go to space and you're like, "Oh, hey, um, I noticed you said this and it didn't feel good." And they're like, "Well, that's you're wrong." I don't want to be that person either. I honestly don't particularly care about any kind of stamp of approval. I care about the impact that my actions have. So I don't give a shit about the sticker. I give a shit about the feeling people have when they come into my space. Next one is lead rebelliously. I want to lead by example. And I'm also just say living and leading rebelliously did not come easy for me at first. I'm a survivor of childhood abuse, um, emotional abuse, childhood sexual abuse, and trauma. And if you know anything about those things or me, you might know that it has a really big impact on how safe it felt to use my voice. It took a lot of practice to learn how to use my voice in a big way, in a bold way. It's a continuing practice. That was one of the biggest, I think that's one of the biggest things you might see if you go back to me at the beginning of my business and me now, is that I'm much more confident in my voice and I'm much more, I feel much more, I feel more badass. I feel more badass using it and question myself less, which is great. And I think that's an important thing to be aware of when we're talking about leading rebelliously or we're doing rebellious work, is that for a lot of us, it doesn't come naturally at first. And I think sometimes that holds us back from making maybe rebellious decisions or making like maybe choosing a more rebellious path or going against the grain. We can hold ourselves back because we think, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at using my voice, or I'm not good at public speaking or like whatever. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be natural at it. It takes practice. Not for everybody, but it does take practice for some. Um, so I want to be honest about that in my journey, is that this did not come naturally to me, but it is a learned experience, a learned behavior. Um, Leading rebellious for me started off with little bold steps, with my hands shaking and maybe my voice shaking, and has grown into bigger, bolder shit. Like actively being involved in social justice and using my voice to raise awareness about the impact of diet culture and spiritual bypassing and the importance of LGBTQIA rights. It would be easier to be silent about global issues, um, to make privileged people more comfortable, or to make a quick buck by promoting yet another yoga for weight loss program. But I refuse to sacrifice my heart or my soul for profit. I refuse to go down that. I refuse to go back to the mainstream view, to go with the grain, whatever. I refuse. I would rather swim upstream in both my marketing as well as my approach if it means that you leave feeling safe or safer with me or in your body. All of my years of practice have shown me how important it is that we use our voices to stand up against oppression, no matter how scary it is. Our words matter a lot more than we think. My next value is this number 3. I think it's number 4. 1, 2, 3. My fourth value is be congruent, aka no bullshit. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and they're like, I'm fine, but you know they're not fine? If you don't know what congruence is, that's a situation where like that's not congruent. Something feels wrong. You can tell they're not fine, but they're saying they're fine. The actions or the words aren't matching the actions, or the words aren't matching the vibe, I guess, in that case. Exploiting pain points, weaknesses, and difficult feelings in order to manipulate you into purchasing from me or work with me feels predatory and icky, and I won't do it. And I sigh at the beginning of saying that because that's mainstream marketing. That's, I mean, not always, but that in a lot of ways, that is mainstream marketing, is pushing on your pain points, exposing your weaknesses, making you feel like the problem, um, so that you will buy from them. I hate that. I feel like mainstream marketing is icky. I value transparency, openness, and honesty. I believe there is value in creating sustainable change. Plus, it's way less icky. Like, I don't want you to feel shitty about yourself and then I'm going to push on that so you buy from me and then you leave feeling worse and then you buy from me again. No, fuck no. I want you to feel seen maybe by some of the things I say and see what I believe in and want to support me because of that, or because you think you can see benefit in the work I do, or you can see its value. And then I want you to continue to see the value in it and come back and purchase from me again. You know what I mean? Sustainable change is going to happen that way. Sustainable change will happen not only with you personally, but also with the main systems, like the bigger systems like diet culture, right? Like you can't sustainable change is not done by lying to you to make money from you. One of the example of this is I speak openly about mental illness, and I do this because it helps reduce stigma, it increases awareness and empathy. Um, that's why I'm honest about where I've come from and what I've gone through and what helped me get through it. I know the difference being seen makes. It's a huge difference. It's like a weight off of your shoulders. It's like breathing for the first time. It's a big deal. I don't want to give you a fake highlight reel of who I am and guilt you into working with me because I appear to have my shit together. Being transparent, open, and honest means that you get to see who I am, what I love, what I'm all about, and then you get to decide if we'll vibe, like if we'll work together well. I want you to work with me because I help you feel seen, because you see me and you love what I'm all about, or maybe you just, you kind of like it. um, that's why I want you to work with me, not because of some mainstream marketing bullshit. I think this is number 5. My values, my second to last, is I want to cheerlead the fuck out of your wins. We've grown up in a society that has repeatedly listed your flaws and taught you you're not enough, focusing on the things you didn't get done on your to do list and not the things that you crossed off. They taught you this to make money off you, especially the global weight loss industry, which is $254.9 billion in 2021. It's bullshit. They made money off of making you feel like you're not good enough or like you haven't done enough. They've made enough money off of you. They've made enough money off of making you feel small, feeling like you need to be small. You deserve better. You've always been enough. You've always deserved better. I want to remind you of that in as many ways as I can. Starting off with cheerleading your wins. Whether you're like, okay, I got out of bed, or maybe you stand up to a mean coworker, or you finally made your perfect waffle recipe, or you moved your body because it felt good. I want to cheerlead all of that. My last value, number 6, is finding freedom in fun. I've been through a lot, as I've kind of alluded to. And for a long time, I was kind of forced to take life too seriously. I didn't, I couldn't see the good things happening because all I was doing was just trying to survive. And healing can be that way sometimes. It can be difficult and it can be serious a lot of the time. But I think one of the things I've learned is that it's also important to let the light in once in a while too. Movement is often marketed as a punishment and like a way to earn value, which I fucking hate, or a way to earn food. Movement can be functional for sure. Like it can help you reduce back pain kind of thing, but it also can be really fun and it can be empowering and it can help you express yourself. I want to help you feel safe and at home in your body so that you can feel that freedom, joyful, fun movement, whether it's like going for a walk with your dog or doing a little dance class or whatever. Like, I want to help you feel that. I want to know what your values are, how this sat with you. Um, I feel really proud of those. And like I said, it was kind of tricky to put it into words, but when I thought about it, those are things that I do on a regular basis and try to be on a regular basis. I do have hard time putting words to it sometimes, but I think honestly, I feel like I fucking nailed it with these. I I think the most important thing to me is that it's again like my actions speak louder than my words. Um, and sometimes it's hard to do. Like it's the aspect of it, like being honest about how I'm feeling or whatever. It sometimes feels hard, like going against mainstream marketing advice of pushing on pain points sometimes feels a little bit like you're fucking it up. But I I'm not. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I've definitely had it where I'm trying to speak about Actually, I'll give a more real example. When last year in June, my cat Banana passed away, which fucking broke me into a million pieces. And not only that, but a couple of months prior to this, I had memories come back for the first time about the childhood sexual abuse that I experienced, and I was not okay for a long time last year. I took the whole summer off podcasting, I think, because I couldn't do it. Like there was too many things happening. I just couldn't. And I really struggled to show up, to know how to show up when it felt like I could barely even breathe some days. Um, and the mainstream marketing advice would just be to tell you that I'm successful and I'm great and everything's fine, but that's not how I'm actually feeling. If I had done that, it would have been like, oh, something feels weird about this, right? Like it would be kind of off-putting. I find particularly from businesses, like people who are trying to get you to buy from them, it feels like it does feel predatory when it's always this fake version. And I'm not gonna treat you like a therapist. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna tell you everything go treat it that way, but acknowledging the things that I was going through was important to continue to show up with congruency, and it is a valuable step in helping people feel seen. I used to have a mental health blog, I think I mentioned, that I just talked about my experiences and some of the things that were a little bit more like seen as taboo. And I don't even know how many times I've was contacted to be told that just me talking about it has made a big impact on somebody. Um, and if I can make an impact on somebody just by existing and being honest about that, then why the fuck wouldn't I do it? You know what I mean? Like you can make, like it's proven with the over $250 billion industry that if I were to market yoga for weight loss, it probably would do well, but I don't want to. I think that's bullshit. And I'm not the reason I don't is because of my values. I value you over the diet culture industry. Um, that's weirdly worded, but like my value is what I'm falling back on when I made that decision and made the decision to go beyond, not like beyond just being neutral, but actively going against the diet culture industry. Would it have been easier if I went with it? Probably. Do I care? No. I want to do with this the way I'm doing it, which means me leading rebelliously, maybe being a little bit scared sometimes, being honest, fucking pumping you up if you've done, whatever you feel proud of, whether it's like you had the best toast this morning or whatever, and learning as I go and letting my actions speak louder than my words. Thanks for listening. This was fun. I feel like I got really pumped up talking about this stuff, and hopefully you can hear in my words how much this matters to me. Um, one of the things that I keep falling back on with all of this is the feeling of being seen. And there was a long time where I didn't feel seen at all. I felt like I was the problem. My body was the problem. Um, I didn't fit in. It felt awful. It's a small way to put it, but it was awful. And there are moments throughout my life where I remember being seen, where someone said, "Of course you'd feel that way." Or where, learning that my body wasn't the problem, or this, whatever it was, where I had a moment where I felt seen, and not only seen, but safe to be seen and validated in just being seen. You know what I mean? Like when you learn, if you feel imposter syndrome with your business, it can be really easy to feel like it's a personal failure until you go to, say, a marketing course or a class or like a get together with other business owners, and all of them also feel imposter syndrome. Fucking freedom. There's so much freedom in knowing that you are not alone, because it is almost like adds this reminder that it's not your fault. I really appreciate you listening and being here, all of your support. If you have a second, if you could rate, review, and subscribe, that really helps me a lot to get this podcast seen by more people. If you listen to this, also post a little screenshot on your social media or in your stories or in your reel or whatever. Let people know you're listening. Um, if you want to support me in the work that I do, you can find a link in the show notes to buy me a coffee or leave me a tip, I think it's called now. And work with me. If you love the stuff that I just talked about, if you're like, fuck yes, this is the kind of business I want to support, you can work with me one-on-one. You can join that teacher workshop, or you can join the group movement class, or even get on demand. It's only $20 a month. So really, what could you lose? Thanks for being here. I will talk to you next week. Bye.